video. I'm tired of being a tough girl. I'm gonna cry. People need to know that this sucks. Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Xrizz'Tina. If you're new here, please don't forget to subscribe or drop a comment, whatever floats your boat. My voice is a little raspy because I've actually been crying. And this video is going to be super candid because this is on the subject of endometriosis, fertility, and things like that. Something that I have literally been going through for years. I posted on my Instagram stories if you guys had any questions. I'm going to answer your questions. But first, I kind of just want to give a brief introduction to the disease. Endometriosis is an autoimmune disease of the reproductive system of women. It's when the endometrial cells, which is on the inside of the uterus, somehow get to the outside of the uterus, and they don't necessarily attack your other organs, but they sort of intertwine or attach to them, so that whenever you do have any sort of anything going on with your reproductive system, whether it's sexual intercourse or your menstrual cycle, whenever that happens, you either will have extreme discomfort, some sort of pain. Once it starts to develop, it can happen whether you're going through your period or having intercourse or not. For me, my endometriosis symptoms really began when I was about 13 or 14 years old. I passed out in school, hit the floor. I had like a cold head thing going on, and I passed out. I would vomit, and as I got older, these symptoms got more intense. I was given birth control medications, painkillers. I even remember getting prescribed my first narcotic, and I was just like, aren't these addictive? You know, and I'm a teenager. I'm like, aren't these addictive? Aren't they bad for you? And I refused to take it because I knew that something was wrong with me, and it wasn't me being dramatic. It wasn't me being a softie because apparently as women, especially black women, we are superheroes and we can just take anything because biologically we are not like other humans, apparently. When I was probably almost mid-20s, I finally got diagnosed with stage 3 endometriosis. And how that came about was I was getting the birth control shot, and I was bleeding every single day for a year. So just imagine being on your period every day for a year. I thought that it was normal because one of my providers basically told me that it was, and it's not. Nobody's supposed to be bleeding every day for the year. Matter of fact, most of the time we shouldn't be bleeding at all. But it got to the point where I couldn't work, and I had not worked for about 3 months. I was completely broke, and then I finally got to go see a surgeon, an OBGYN specialist, meaning somebody who actually knows what they're talking about. And right off the bat, he was just like, I believe you. Like, what you're saying is not absurd, it's not obscure, you're not being dramatic. And, you know, I was taught that when I'm speaking to professionals, I shouldn't cry and I shouldn't show feelings because they won't believe me. And I held my face together when I was talking to this provider, but I did start crying in his office because it is just so hard, you know, going through, and I know I'm not the only one, but it is just so hard going through this kind of thing and having people literally dismiss you because you're young and because you're black and because they don't want to give you painkillers even though you don't take them, or because your insurance said. And it's painful. It is so painful. Not only that, but to be dismissed and realize you're being dismissed because there is little to no current knowledge about the female reproductive system or body at all is amazing. in the worst way, because we trust these people to take care of us, and they don't know anything about our bodies. That's scary. I wound up having I believe it's called robotic, but it's a laparoscopic surgery. And the way my doctor explained it was, this is the kind of surgery they perform when they open you up and just to see what's in there. And it's the kind of surgery that has to be performed for endometriosis because there's no way to detect it. And that is part of the reason why so many doctors know little to nothing about it. Even the pamphlets that I get for my disease are like 20 years old, which is amazing. Like, that's crazy to me. But it's not detectable. It's not something where you can drink a fluid and it'll show up. It's literally this. I'll just insert a picture that I shared online of my guts. It's literally this. It almost looks like somebody accidentally burned your organs. They were like, oops, sorry, I burned it a little bit. Like you're cooking something. That's what it looks like, at least to me. They went in there, they scraped out what they could, so my doctor said, and he let me know, you have stage 3 out of 4. 4 is the worst. Stage 3 endometriosis. And I just remember being so angry. I was so angry at my doctors. I was angry at my family because, like I said, I had been dismissed for so long. I'd been told to drink tea and to eat vegetables only and all these different rituals like yoni steams and stuff like that. And being told, have I tried Midol? And it's like, are you serious? I'm literally dying. And as soon as people hear it's relative to your period, they're just like, oh, my period's not like that. It lasts 3 days and I get cramps, but I can still. And it's like, well, that's not me. I pass out. I change colors. I lose 10 pounds in fluid every month. I can't eat for 2 days. I vomit until I pass out. Like, after my surgery, I felt really good. It was nice. I didn't take my painkillers after my surgery either because it quite literally did not hurt. I think my body was just so relieved with the fact that what they found was scraped out and gotten rid of that I was good. My doctor put me on a medication called Orlissa. And for me, I don't know if it does this for everyone, but for me, it induced menopause. Menopause is the hormonal point in a female's life where she runs out of eggs in her body and her body goes into, we need to figure this out mode. So for the most part, when people talk about menopause, you'll commonly hear them say things like hot flashes and needing a fan and chewing on ice and the temperature in the house jumping up and down, which I had hot flashes. I had fans in my purse. But to me, it was a relief. I was like, I would much rather go through this than go through all of the pain that I went through. The only downside to the medication I was prescribed is you are only supposed to take it for 2 years because it can mess up your bone density. And then it was ridiculously expensive. I think it was like $1,000 per package. I don't even think I have one anymore, but they sort of look like birth control, but it's stronger, like way stronger. And I loved it. I unfortunately reached a point where I was not covered for insurance, so I couldn't get the Orlissa anymore. And for the last 2 years, basically, I have not been on any painkillers. I haven't been on any birth control. I've sort of just been riding the wave of waiting until my period gets to the point where I just can't take it anymore. And thankfully now I'm at the point where I can have surgery again. This time I'm going to be having a hysterectomy, and I'm really relieved. I know a lot of people, feel like, oh, you should wait or try this or try that. But honestly, it's so important to respect people's wishes. It's so important to respect what they've been through and try to even if you can't understand, try to sympathize with the fact that this is something they're suffering with, and this is a solution. You might not like it. You might not want to go through it. You might feel bad because maybe I'll never have a kid that looks like me. But me and my husband are absolutely okay with it. And quite frankly, it means the world to me knowing that, you know, number one, I'm not alone because I have friends and around the world who've gone through this too. But also because I have a partner in life and eternity, I like to tell him, who feels like having me is more important than having descendants. You know. And I know we live in a modern age where most women are like, screw that! But I'm old enough to still remember, you know, basically learning that everything that we are as women has to be. You have to be able to have children. You have to know how to cook. You have to know how to clean. You have to know how to keep a man happy. Things like that. And for Damien to look to me and basically say, you know, you are worth more to me than this. It makes me really happy. Because, you know, for the longest time I thought I would wind up being alone because a lot of men want children, you know. A lot of women want children. And whether it's because they want it or because their family puts pressure on them, it's something that happens, you know. I have to admit, you know, in the last 2 years that we've been together, I had hoped that we would accidentally, you know, have a child. And unfortunately, I've had 3 miscarriages. And this might be, you know, TMI, but I had one today. And that's why I decided to just go ahead and film this before, you know, I don't have the guts to do it anymore, because I can talk about it all day long, but it's difficult to gather my thoughts when I'm thinking about everything that I've gone through. And it's not easy. It's not easy, but like I said, I'm so glad that that I have him, and that he doesn't look at me like a concubine or like, you know, I'm just some lady that's supposed to clean his drawers and make babies for him. But yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. I'm going to be having a hysterectomy. Not a partial, but it's not a full. They're going to take my uterus and probably whatever else my endometriosis is on in a little over a month. And I'm really excited. I'm really ready to get it over with. I'm ready to live my life. I'm ready to be pain-free. I'm ready to stop buying products that feel like diapers. I'm ready to not feel trapped in my own body anymore. And obviously I know that one day I will get sick again with something, very much something, that's going to wear me down and wear me out. But it won't be my period. So it won't be endometriosis. So I'm cool with that. I also want to say that this disease can spread. I have a friend who her endometriosis basically spread to her lungs. And so I'm making this video because I know that there are a lot of people who are curious and interested about it and have been for the last few years, especially if you've been following me in the last few years. But not only that, I'm making the video so that if you feel like something is wrong, please do not dismiss it. Please do not just accept what anyone has to say unless you are absolutely positively sure that is what it is. Because had I not, I would still be on birth control. I'd be going through all sorts of weird wavy motions, and my disease probably would have spread and you know, hurt me, because you can become disabled and it's believed that you can die from this. So yeah, let's get into the questions. If I'm a little out of breath, it's because I am very tired. I'm very tired. Like I said, I miscarried today, and it's painful. If you've never gone through miscarriage, they are painful. The first one was, how and when did you get your diagnosis? So I was diagnosed in 2019. I went to an OBGYN specialist. And from what I understand, they are usually located within the hospital and not like at their own facility. I pretty much just sat down, talked to him. He saw my medical records and he was like, yeah, you have endometriosis. So we did a procedure. I forgot the name of the procedure, but so they take like this needle thing that has a balloon on the end of it and they stick it up your vagina and they put it through your cervix. They blow your cervix up, okay? And they spray the inside of your uterus with a fluid that will allow them to see if you have fibroids or any irregularities with the lining of your uterus, right? They did that first, and boy, did that hurt. It was so painful and unprovoked. I was like, gee. I cried. I shed a tear when it happened because I was just like, yo, I'm tired of being a tough girl. I'm gonna cry. People need to know that this sucks. My doctor said something to me that I definitely was not expecting, which was, your uterus and ovaries are perfectly normal. They are healthy. And I did have 2 cysts on my left ovary. But he showed me and I got to look and I was just like, there's nothing in there. That right there though, if you don't have a specialist, could lead another doctor into thinking, well, there's nothing wrong with you. You just have bad periods. Because someone who's not a specialist or who's not interested in figuring out what's wrong with you is not going to go beyond that. They're not. Thankfully though, I did have medical records that basically said that I go through a lot of pain. I've been diagnosed, I've been prescribed a lot of different medications and birth controls. And of course, if your insurance will cover it, you know, they'll go ahead and proceed. So he was like, okay, since we didn't find anything wrong with your uterus, no fibroids or crazy size cysts that are huge, we're going to do laparoscopic surgery. We're going to do a 3-point surgery. So it was my belly button, basically the left corner of my abdomen, and then right above my my bikini line. 3 points, and they blew up my stomach, went inside, and was like, stage 3 endometriosis. So that's how I was diagnosed. And because it's an autoimmune disease, it's not something that goes away, especially if you don't remove whatever the powerhouse is. Powerhouse. The powerhouse of endometriosis is the uterus. But it's not something that goes away if you don't remove the only source. And the only source they know is the uterus. Let me see. Why do you have such a loving and doting sister? I don't know. The next question says, does it affect you having kids in the future? And is there any meds for the moments of pain? So for me specifically, in my experience, I've noticed that having endometriosis causes me to not be able to carry children. It's not that I'm barren, because I've had 4 fetuses. It's almost like I get pregnant, I have the symptoms, but when my period's supposed to come, the cells don't understand that there's now a baby in there. And the cells say, it's time for your period. So we're going to induce a period. At least that's how it feels, because nothing else really makes sense to me other than my body just saying, well, time's up, baby. You know, you aren't big enough to fight us back, so you got to go. But yeah, the only medicine that worked for me was Orlissa. Everything over the counter, even narcotics, my body laughs in the face of painkillers. It's literally like, how dare you insult me with this man-made foolishness. If I do try to take something, even if it's right before my period, I will start vomiting, and I won't stop vomiting until I fall asleep. And those pills do not taste good when they come back up. The next question is, what causes it? Is it excessive shedding of the uterus that causes more bleeding and pain? So the second question is what my first two doctors told me it was. They were like, oh yeah, you have a high amount of, I think endocrine is what it was, something like that. Some sort of hormone that essentially causes the uterine lining to shed. They were like, yeah, you must have a high amount of that. That's why you're going through so much pain. But they don't know what causes endometriosis because the endometrial lining of the uterus winds up outside of it. And they can't figure out how that happens. As far as I know, it is considered a hereditary condition, this autoimmune disease. Did pregnancy affect the pain? I don't know. Because I remember the first time I miscarried, it was horrible. And, you know, I had previously had really bad periods before, and I had been on birth control and things like that. I don't think it made an impact on my pain at all because, like my doctor said, my uterus and ovaries are fine. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not damaged. They're perfectly fine. What I have learned though is some women with endometriosis will get pregnant, have children, and then not have symptoms as bad or not have the symptoms anymore at all. Which is why usually when you're diagnosed with it, they'll go in and they'll scrape you out first and sort of give you some time to get pregnant, because majority of people, well, a good chunk of people want to have babies, and the pregnancy can help. It's not a cure. There is no cure, but the pregnancy can help. And they're not quite sure why that is either. Again, because nobody has really been investigating this disease up until recently. Did being sexually active help or worsen the pain? Woo! So, in my opinion, I think having intercourse helps. And that really depends on the severity of your endometriosis. So, if you are at the point where you're having pain not during your period, that means that your endometriosis is spreading to different parts of your abdomen, and you'll definitely want to get that checked out. That's also part of the reason why I went ahead and decided to go ahead and get a hysterectomy, because I was starting to experience pain during intercourse, whereas beforehand it didn't happen. So that was a sign to me that the endometriosis was spreading. But before that, I felt like, and this might be TMI, so if you ain't trying to hear stuff like this, go ahead and skip over it. I felt like having sex about 2 to 3 days into my period helped the pain go away completely. Usually I would have pain for about 5 days, and my periods last 7 days. So, you know, having the great partner that I do have, we would make do with what we need to do, and I would be able to function by the 3rd or 4th day of my period normally. I was told that intercourse during menstruation can really help with the cramps by a number of people, including doctors. And I know some people think it's gross or whatever, but there's ways to be clean about it, so yeah. Just leave it at that. Let me see. The next question is, does anything help manage the pain? Sleep. Sleep is the only thing that helps me with the pain. I will literally cry and scream and shake and not be able to walk or breathe, and as soon as I fall asleep and wake up, I will still be in some pain, but it's almost like somebody turned me off, like a device. Like they just turned me off for a minute, let me cool down, so that when they turn me back on, I'm ready to function again. Outside of that, I think it's really important to note that, and I know this might make some people uncomfortable depending on who you are, but I feel like it's really important to note that affection and physically being present with someone when they're sick is so important, even if they are outright crazy. When I first started to realize that I was sick, I was by myself a lot. I was always in my room. I felt like an ugly princess locked away in the tower. And I wasn't ugly physically. I was ugly on the inside because my guts hated me. My sisters would come around and they would take care of me, thankfully. But I always felt like I was so alone because it's uncomfortable to watch somebody be in pain and suffer like that, which I totally understand. But not being alone was better than my painkillers. And I appreciate that, you know, now more than ever, because my sisters, you know, are living their own lives. We're grown. And I'm married now. And, you know, he does whatever I need. He sympathizes with me. You know, if I ask him for something, he will get it done. He makes sure that other people check in on me. Try not to cry. And he puts me to sleep. Because he knows that is quite literally the only time I'm going to get any sort of relief or any sort of rest is if I am asleep. And he's great. He does everything he can to make sure that I'm okay, including backing me up on getting this procedure done so that I can be pain-free. The last question is, how did the diagnosis process go for you? For me, if I'm counting everything that I went through, I would say terrible. And I say terrible because pain should not be dismissed because it's relative to your gender functionality. I'll say that again in a different way. Nobody should be dismissing your pain just because it's relative to your gender and how your body is supposed to function. Okay? Nobody. Doctors, they're not all terrible. They're not all stupid. They're not all ignorant. This is not to dismiss them in any way, shape, form, or fashion. But if nobody knows your body like you do. They might know the books. They might know the technical terms and how to cut you open and how to stitch you, this, that, and the third. But nobody knows your body like you. So if you are paying attention, and I really want people to know this too, pay attention to your body. If it doesn't feel right, it's not normal. Just because other people say they go through it and they're willing to endure that suffering doesn't mean you have to either. And if people who should be listening to you do not listen to you, go somewhere else until you find someone willing to hear you out. Had I known that I had endometriosis, had I known what I would have had to go through, I would have done a lot more for myself. I would have stood up for myself more often. I would not have let the doctors who didn't listen to me intimidate me so much. And I would have spoken out a lot sooner about my condition. Nobody should be getting dismissed for their pain. I was not satisfied with my body and with what I was being prescribed to do and go through until I went to see my OBGYN specialist. Up before that, everything sucked because I was literally suffering for years for no reason. I'm glad I got to sit here and chat with you guys. I'm not having the best day. Today was not easy for me, and I just want to say I sincerely appreciate everyone who supported me, everyone who has been around since I started tweeting about my crazy things that I've been going through with my body back in 2019. I appreciate all of the support, and I don't mean following me on this channel or anywhere else. I mean the direct messages, the communication, sharing your experiences with me, creating bonds together, and basically being friends. I hope y'all know, like, if we be having legit conversations, we're friends. At least in my head. But I just want to say thank you because it's meant the world to me, and obviously this is not going to be the end of my journey as a woman because I'm still female with or without my uterus and ovaries. I will be sure to share and update, you know, how I'm feeling and what I'm going through for my surgery. And if y'all want to see that, just let me know. Otherwise, it's going to be on Twitter. I'm just going to go sit down in the living room and try to relax and keep drinking my water. Very important to drink your water during your period and if you have endometriosis, because believe it or not, this will help make the blood just flow right on out a little bit easier. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting me all this time, and I hope that you're having a good day, and I'll see y'all next time. Peace.